Realistically, with that sort of data, I should have been on my way to the hospital rather than on my way to the start line of another ultra marathon. Hi everyone, and welcome to Recovered Running. Today is a race review, and it comes from the Ultra Challenge across the Gower Peninsula in Wales, which happened in July last year, 2025. The reason why I'm doing this review now is so that anyone thinking about doing the race in 2026 has the opportunity to see what my thoughts were about it and some details on the race. Obviously, as you can see here, I do have a medal and I do have a finisher's t-shirt, which means I did finish the race. Now, there was lots of different distances available from I think even down to a 5k right up to a 100-kilometer race, and I chose to do the 100-kilometer race. Now, as you'll see on my medal, it does say I'm a full challenge finisher. It's because I completed the longest distance available on this race, which was 100 kilometers. Although I didn't do the 100 kilometers continuous, I done it over 2 days. So I done the 2-day challenge, which consisted of 50k on day 1 and 50k on day 2, with a combined elevation across the 2 days of about 7,200 feet, which is roughly climbing Snowdon twice, as well as completing the 100-kilometer run. So let's get into it. As a little bit of an intro about what the video is about. Let's get into it. I'm going to cover as much as I can, even down to where I stayed and what it was all about. Okay, so the Gower Peninsula was my first ever ultra marathon. I'm actually 8 months prior, I had never run. I got a spot in the London Marathon, which was for April 2025, and that was the longest distance I'd ever done. But I just got this bug for running, bug for how it made me feel. So before I even completed the London Marathon, I booked this race, this 100k race. Now, I've done a lot of research into what company I wanted to complete my first ultra marathon with. And after looking into lots of different companies, I wanted to find one that, you didn't need a support crew yourself. It wasn't a self-navigation, because I didn't have the equipment like watches and stuff at that point. So I wanted to find a company who, you could just turn up and run on the day. And Ultra Challenge was that company that I decided to go for. Now, I decided to choose a challenge in Wales because my wife's family is from Wales and we have 3 children. So we knew that we were going to need support if she wanted to come and cheer me on and be at aid stations and things like that. We were going to need support from family members. So we chose to do the race in Wales. And this was the first time that the Gower Peninsula Ultra Challenge happened. This is not a race that's ever been done before. So this was the first time that Ultra Challenge had run this race. Now, Ultra Challenge do events up and down the country, all over. And I think the thing that I really liked about the Ultra Challenge was the fact that you could run, walk, jog. In actual fact, I don't think they really treat it as a race. I don't think there's a podium at the end. I'm not sure there's a winner of the races, but you can run, you can walk, you can jog, and there's different categories. So after doing my research, I decided to go for the Ultra Challenge company, as I just think that they looked like the best for me to complete my first ultra marathon. Now, initially, my wife was going to stay with her family, and I was going to sleep in my car at the campsite that the Ultra Challenge have. They have a campsite. You can book it on their website as an additional extra. But as the time got closer, I realised that actually the challenge that I was doing was no small feat. So maybe sleeping in my car probably wasn't the best thing to do. So as the time got closer, we found a campsite which is quite close to the start line. And the start line was at Penrith Castle. And I'll show you just here, or I'll link it below, the campsite that we stayed in. And it was pretty reasonable cost. I think it cost us about £250 for the weekend. It was more than enough space for myself and my family, and it just gave me a place to go back to and rest during the challenge, before and after. As I mentioned to you before, I completed the 100k across 2 days. So that consisted of 50k on day one and 50k on day two, with a combined elevation of around about 7,100 feet. Now, even though I have completed the race, and I am an ultra marathon runner now because I completed a 50k on day one and a 50k on day two, I still really struggle with the concept of saying that I've run 100 kilometers, because I think realistically I haven't. You know, it's no small feat what I done. 50k back to back ultra marathons is a huge challenge, but actually they do 100k continuous race, and particularly at the Gower Peninsula race, the guys and girls that done 100-kilometer race, they really went through it, because during the night some horrendous weather set in, to the point where there was flooding everywhere when we woke up the next day. So little old me, who completed 50 kilometers on day one, slept for 6 hours, it was roughly about 6 hours, and then come out and completed 50 kilometers on day two. I can't sit here and say that I've done 100 kilometers and I'm a 100-kilometer finisher, because I just don't think that would be fair, and I don't think it would be fair on the people that did actually do the 100 kilometers at the Gower Peninsula, because the weather was terrible, and then people went through the night, and I saw some of them the next day who were still out on the course, and wow, they looked like they had been through it. Now, when you sign up for the event, you are asked the question, roughly what time do you think you're going to do? Are you going to be running, walking, or jogging? And I believe this determines the waves that you get set to start in. Now, I arrived at about 7 a.m. on the Saturday to the event village. Lots of food, lots of places to get coffee, and lots of places to get ready as well. My start time was 8:30. I can't remember what I put down when I initially signed up to this event. I mean, I hadn't even completed a marathon at that point, so I probably went for this could take me 24 hours. So I wasn't surprised to be further back in the waves, but actually I think that was a bit of a mistake, because this event and the Ultra Challenge, there is a lot of people that walk it. I particularly think that's mainly what this event is for, more for walkers, joggers, people who walk. So with me starting at 8:30 and there being waves from 6 a.m, there was a point where I just hit a wall of walkers when I started. And I'll get into that a little bit more as to where and why. But I think, in hindsight, and if anyone is looking to book this race in 2026, just be conscious of that. Be conscious that there are walkers going out very early in the morning. But there also is now, and I've seen this on the Ultra Challenge website in 2026, because I have signed up for another 100k in June in the Cotswolds. See you there. But they're now doing, for people that really want to run, I think it's called Trailblazers. You can now go out early, and it's for the people that are going to run it and they want to get in front of everyone else. And look, I think, signing up at the time, I didn't really know, but it's something to note for the future. When I got there, got my race number, it was extremely easy going in and getting your race number and just giving your details. There's also some goodies. Got one of these scarf thingies, which, brilliant. It was a very hot day. I had it around my wrist at points. But yeah, check-in, really easy. The one thing I was surprised about was the fact that there was no mandatory kit checking in. Races that I am now signed up to for this year, even 50Ks, and I've got the Arc of Attrition in a few weeks. Like, the mandatory kit list is huge, and they're really strict on when you check in and you get your number, that you get your mandatory kit out and it's all checked and they agree that you've got it all, and so on. There was none of that at the Ultra Challenge. I didn't actually bring any mandatory kit, or I couldn't find a kind of mandatory kit list. I bought my poles, I bought my gels, I bought my water and my pack, and that was it. I was off. So that was a bit of a surprise. Check-in and everything done. I went ahead and I got in the pen at 8:15 for my 8:30 start. When you get in the pen, there's a really energetic guy on the stage. I can't remember his name, but he was giving you all the dance moves, all of the exercises to get warmed up, ready to go. Now I was going off at 8:30, as I mentioned, so you had a bit of a 15-minute wait in the pen with other people. They do still actually, and this is something to note, that even though I was in the 8:30 pen, they did still say, is there anyone that's running? I put my hand up. They said, right, you go to the front, and the other runners go to the front, and off you go. So the race for me started at 8:30, and we shot out of Penrith Castle, and off we went. Being my first ultra marathon, and probably being one of my first ever runs not on a flat surface, I was absolutely shocked to be met with a 510-foot climb pretty much straight away. Yeah, I mean, we got out of the traps and off we went. And within, I would say, 4 or 5 minutes, we're climbing. And 510 feet to maybe quite a lot of people watching this video is probably not a lot. Proper ultra runners would have probably gone, yeah, no, turn this video off at this point, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. But 510 feet to me was a lot straight out the traps. And by the time I got to the top of this climb, my heart rate was through the roof, like over 170. I was struggling to bring it back down, but we're at the top of, we're going towards Pennard, I believe. I'm going to say loads of names wrong because I can't pronounce Welsh places, but I think it's Pennard, where we're heading towards, and we get to the top, and it's fantastic. I'll show you a little video of that now. We get this climb out of the way. I'm coming, there's a little bit of a decline to kind of try and get that heart rate back under control. And then again, not knowing what to expect in these ultras, I was met with, picture cue, sand. I'm not talking about the sand that's compact, that you can run on and it's nice and bouncy and it feels lovely. I'm talking about sand that makes you feel like you're running on your mattress at home and you can't move. Or it's like one of those scary movies, or when you're in a dream and there's a monster chasing you and you just can't move. That's literally what this felt like. And it went on for about 1 kilometer. And I'm new to all of this stuff. So at the point, I didn't know to have like shoe gaiters or, all of that stuff. So by the time this kilometer was over, my legs were shot, completely dead. My shoes were filled with sand. And I was like, what the hell have I signed myself up for? And that was on the way to Ockwich. Correct me, Welsh people. But like I say, it went on for about 1 kilometer. And by the time that was over, my legs were pretty shot. Now, as I mentioned, the Ultra Challenge, I went with this company because they seemed to just have everything down to a point. It was so well signposted, and there was aid stations at every 12.5 kilometers. Because there was aid stations at every 12.5 kilometers, when I got to the aid station at Ockwich Castle, I decided to just fill my water up and skip it, because there's going to be another one in 12.5 kilometers, and great. And so we come out of Ockwich Castle and we are heading on around about 300-foot climb in this section to Port Eon. which is around about the 20-kilometer mark. And this is a good point for me to mention that it was really hot. It was mid-July and it was extremely sunny. We're down on the coast. And yeah, we were getting blazed with sun for a good, 20 or so kilometers. And then we got into this kind of like wooded area where we were obviously climbing again. And it was, like I say, around about 300-foot climb. And it was at this point I come across a lady laying on the floor and her friend with her. And the lady had diabetes and her blood sugars were dropping. I think the sun had really affected her, and her friend was kind of trying to help her. 20 kilometres in, just stopped and helped the lady who was on the floor. She's dropping blood sugar levels, so I've just been stationary for about 4 or 5 minutes. I've got a really sore knee. The terrain is difficult on the legs, but 20 kilometers in, 5 more kilometers, I'll be halfway for today. Cheers. Ultra challenge, you have a lanyard that you scan when you go in and out of pens, and it's about time and making sure that everyone's kind of there. And on the back of that lanyard is an emergency number. But unfortunately, we was in a part of the woods where there was just like no signal at all. And this lady clearly needed help. I had lots of gels and things on me, which I offered, but obviously she's been a diabetic. She knows what she could and couldn't take, so she said no. But we kind of had a very brief discussion, and they were like, "You're running. The aid station is in 5 kilometers, so you head off, and when you get there, send some help back." I was like, "Fine, off I go." And I for this lady and the situation, I wanted to push it, so I wanted to get there as quickly as I can. And this is the only gripe that I have with the Ultra Challenge from the whole thing. That aid station was not at 25 kilometers, and there was quite a climb all the way to where it was. I believe it was probably closer to 30 kilometers. By the time I got there, it was certainly not 5 kilometers. I had run out of water about an hour before. I was not moving well at all. I was in a really bad way. I was dehydrated. I was conscious of the fact that there was potentially this lady still there not getting any help. And when I got to the bottom of what felt like Mount Everest, I could see the aid station at the top. And I got myself up there somehow and got into it. And yeah, as I say, this is the only thing that I would say about the Ultra Challenge. I think there potentially needs to be a little bit more conscious where they're actually exactly saying where the aid stations are, so people don't fall short like I did with water and things like that. But it's the only gripe that I have. So we'll move past that. But I got in there and I needed to sit. I needed to chill. I spent about 30 or 40 minutes in this aid station. I took my shoes off. I ate a sandwich. I got some electrolytes in me. I drank lots of water. And my family was there as well, which was a huge boost that I needed, although they wasn't allowed in. And it does make sense because the Ultra Challenge, the drink, the food, everything in the aid stations is free. You've paid, you're there, you're running, it's all for you. So if they did let families in, it would probably get a bit difficult to work out who's actually entitled to the food and who's not. So they have to stay outside. But I pulled up a chair, there was a little mesh fence in between, and we sat and spoke. And considering when I got into that aid station, I felt terrible. I was picked right back up with food, drink, fluid, seeing my family, and after about 30 or 40 minutes, I was like, right, I'm good to go. It was at this point that I realised actually the feat of the task that I was doing was huge. I was probably at around about 28 to 30 kilometres at that point, and I'm thinking, well, I've got another 70 to run, and I'm already feeling this way. I had a lot of knee pain by this point as well because of the elevation and the ups and downs. So I got some Tiger Balm, strapped up the knee, and was ready to go. There's a video of me just heading out the aid station now.
Give us a woohoo!
So heading out of this aid station, we headed off to Rossili, who knows? Tell me in the comments if I got it right. And started kind of the second half of the race. Between this aid station and the next, which was at Cheriton, it was roughly about 1,000 foot of climb. And I expected this section to be quite difficult, but actually after fueling quite well at the aid station and starting to take some gels back on, I actually found a little bit of a groove, a little bit of a mojo during this point, and started smiling again. This section was actually quite an enjoyable section with some amazing views. Cue some pictures. Now, towards the back of this section, I obviously hit 42 kilometers, which was an amazing achievement for me. It was the second time that I had gone to marathon distance, but this time that wasn't it. I was going into uncharted territory. I was now an ultra marathon runner, which I was super proud of at that point. Yes, marathon done. 8 kilometers to go for today. And I only actually had 8k to go before the end of day one. So I wanted to push it. And to be honest, the last 8k of the first day one was pretty uneventful. I got to the midway point, and it is the midway point. You are back at the start line, but you don't go through the finish line. You go through a different section, and you come in and you get scanned in, and then they say, thank you, enjoy some food, see you again tomorrow. So at this point that I come into the midway point, I was sitting in 24th place and had completed the first 50 kilometers with about 1,200 meters of elevation, which I believe is about 3,500 foot, in 8 hours and 49 minutes. I do have a little video of me here sitting in the midway point. I do tell you that my time is a lot quicker than what I just told you now. I'm not delirious. Well, I probably am actually by this point because I just run 50k, but I had been pausing my watch when I was in like aid station, so I thought I'd run it a lot quicker. But there's no pauses in ultramarathons. I've now come to know. First 50k done. It was about 7.5 hours, something like that. Pretty rough terrain to run on. A lot of it wasn't even runnable. So quite a bit so long, but currently sitting in 24th place, ready to go in tomorrow's 50k. Cheers. So I ate some good food, fueled back up, and headed off back to the caravan. Now, being a dad of 3 kids, going back to the caravan, it wasn't kind of, I'm going back to the caravan to completely rest. I needed to help my wife as well. She had had them all day on her own and was trepsing across Wales to see me at aid stations to wave.
Gosh, she's lost weight, isn't she?
Yeah, I know.
Daddy, you should go, Daddy.
Oh.
Oh, you're saying Daddy? Daddy?
You have to run back down that hill because you missed
He's going, Daddy.
Rubbed Tiger Balm on my leg, and quite frankly, she'd probably had enough by that point. So got back to the caravan, done daddy duties, chilled out a little bit. But at this point, I realised how bad of a shape my body was in. Once the kids had gone to bed, I kind of sat down. I had a temperature of about 39 at that point, and I had chafe around my gooch area, and the back underneath my bum. Now, that area, in the most politest way possible, no longer looked like a man's area. It kind of looked like a woman's area because it it swollen up. It's the politest way possible to put it. And it was quite concerning because it was really, really bad. I tried to shower. I really struggled to shower because the soap was kind of stinging that area so bad. But yeah, the most concerning thing was this temperature of 39. It wasn't coming down. I was red hot. I started to feel sick, and my body went into, I believe, it's shock. I had it after the London Marathon. When I got home, I was shaking and jittery, and I had it again at this point. I was really shaking, and it wasn't cold, and I was hot. So I got into bed and I tried to rest. Bearing in mind, I had to be at the start line the next day at 5:40 to go off at 6. I remember saying to my wife, I'm not going to go. There's no way that I can go and do that again when I'm in this state. And she was like, okay, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm sure, but I'm going to lay my kit out just in case. Because I was also doing it for charity. I was doing it for a charity called Hospitality Action. They're a charity that's really close to my heart. And, I didn't want to let people down. And also as well, my ego, I told people I'm going to run 100 kilometers. There's no way that I wanted to drop out. So I said, listen, I'm going to lay my kit out and I'm going to get up in the morning and see how I feel. When I woke up in the morning, I was wearing a Whoop at the time. My Whoop was alarming. HRV low, temperature high, like dangerously high. 1% recovery, and it gave me this death sign. I'll show you a picture of the data now. Realistically, with that sort of data, I should have been on my way to the hospital rather than on my way to the start line of another ultra marathon. But I put my kit on. I got up. It was about 5 a.m. I put my kit on, and I thought to myself, "You're going to DNF. You're not going to be able to do this, but don't DNF here in the comfort of this caravan. DNF out on the course." Maybe in my mind I was thinking, twist an ankle, but don't do it here. So I went and I got to the start line, and there's a video of me here sitting in my car at 5:40 in the morning, and I think it kind of shows you how I felt at that point. Morning. So I've just arrived at the start line for day 2 to do another 50k ultra marathon. Yesterday ended up being a little bit of a run walk because of the terrain. Apparently this 50k is meant to be a bit more runnable, but I'm fucked. I've definitely broke my toe. I got the worst recovery last night on my Whoop. If anyone uses Whoop, my recovery was 1%. I got a temperature. I'm actually surprised I even made it to the start line, to be honest. But I'm going to at least start and see what happens. But yeah, I'm in a bit of a bad way. The weather's quite bad as well. Yesterday in Wales, it actually wasn't too bad, but the weather that you had in England and around St Albans and that yesterday, we've got it here now. So yeah, fun times. Right, bye. I got back in the pen and off I went. Yeah, it was at this point that I really realised how capable the human body is, and how much your mind prevents you from what you can do and how far you can go. It was my mind that was telling me that morning and the night before, don't do it. Don't go to the start line. Go to the hospital, do this, do that. And actually, I got to that start line. I started running. And before I knew it, my body felt fine. My legs no longer hurt. My chafe and everything was still there, but it didn't hurt. And I realised that actually, if I would have cooped out when I thought I was only at that 40% mark. I know that people like Goggins and other people speak about this 40% terminology, 40% strategy. When you think you're done, you're actually only at 40%. It's your mind that's telling you you're done. I fully agree with that now, and I was actually in awe of how capable my body was to get up and go on that second day. Day 2, I don't actually have that much footage of day 2. And the reason being, you know, when I got to the start line that day, someone said, listen, it's quite runnable today. And actually they were right. Scenery wise, day 2 wasn't great. It was a lot of pavement bashing, a lot of running through kind of small towns and housing and places like that. Don't get me wrong, there was still a nice amount of views at points, and there was still 1,000 meters of climb, around about 3,500 foot of climb. You know, just under the distance of climbing Snowdon. But yeah, it definitely day 2 was runnable, and more kind of woodland areas rather than the coastal path. By the time that I got to 70 kilometers, my knee was in pretty bad shape. It was really hurting. You know, I was struggling to bend it, and I met a guy, I think his name was James, and he was saying to me, you know, if you, when you're coming downhill, bend your legs a little bit more, and it will prevent the knee pain. And do you know what? Actually, it did. And me and this chap ran for, I reckon we ran for about 15 kilometers on and off together. He was a great guy. He had done some of these challenges before. He really helped me. But about 72 kilometers, I bumped into my wife and my family. And he was like, listen, I'm going to leave you to it. Enjoy this moment. And off he went. And I spent about 10 minutes with him, tiger balm, the leg, cuddles. You know, I was quite emotional at this point as well, because I think it just takes it out of you. And emotionally, you're drained at 72 kilometers. And yeah, he went off into the distance. I spent 10 minutes with them, and then I went, and actually I didn't realize how much I just needed that boost of seeing them, because before I know it, I'd gone past James. I think his name was James. I'd gone past him, and I was off, and he was like, he as I went past, you know, he shouted to me, use that fuel that they've just given you, mate, go on, off you go. And off I went. Day 2 was pretty tough as well because of the weather. There was quite bad weather that had set in. As I mentioned earlier in the video, during the night had been bad weather, but it was still there. And it started to really kind of rain at this point. So it was like rain jacket on, rain jacket off. But yeah, at about 75 kilometers, really found my mojo. You know, started to move quite well again, started to put in, I'd say at this point, maybe around like 7-minute kilometers, which for me at that point was pretty good. 75 kilometers nearly. Got my mojo back a little bit. Knees, bumped into Sarah. She gave me some tiger balm. Knees seems to be calming down a little bit, but I've got 3 kilometers to the next aid station where I'm going to sit down, have something to eat, and then get back out, try if I can get this done. Yes. Now, when I got to the 75 kilometer aid station, I decided to sit down, have a little bit of food, and I needed some treatment on my feet because I had blisters by this point. One of them needed popping and treating. So sat down, had some treatment, had some food, and was like, right, you know, last 25 kilometers before I can get back and celebrate this massive achievement. And the last part of the race was about 2,000 feet of climb as well. It was a pretty tough last part of the race, but sitting down and having that fuel just helped me really push on. And I started to move quite well. And there's a video of me here hitting my second marathon. So this would have been at 92 kilometers with 8 kilometers left to go. It's another marathon completed. 8 kilometers to go. Yes, I'm gonna do it, hopefully, as long as I get hit by a car or something. And at this point I was just like, oh my god, I'm actually going to complete this challenge. You know, I'm going to complete back-to-back ultra marathons, cumulative of 100 kilometers over 2 days. I just couldn't believe it. Like, you know, if you think back to 8 months before, I hadn't run. I'd got a spot in the London Marathon. I was drinking loads. I was 16 stone. And then all of a sudden, I'm like 8 kilometers away from hitting 100k. Wow, I was just like so emotional by that point, and so excited to just get it done as well. So cue the video of me crossing the line, and this is me crossing the line with my 7-year-old daughter. She'd been running up and down waiting for me to come in for an hour. I think they thought I was going to finish an hour quicker than I did, but she had been there an hour waiting for me, and I crossed the finish line. And I crossed the finish line in a cumulative time of 18 hours and 4 minutes.
Now, I don't know what the relationship with that little girl is to you, but she had been practicing this little bit for a long time. She's been running up and down, up and down. I think she'll sleep well tonight, but clearly waiting for you. You can bring her in if you want to. Seeing as she put so much effort into this, well done.
Brilliant. Oh, crying.
And I come in the top 20 of 157 runners. I come in 18th place. And yeah, I mean, I was just buzzing with that. Absolutely buzzing with that. And actually, one of the other reasons why I was so buzzing with it was because after I completed the London Marathon, I was in such a bad way. A lot of people were like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you definitely can't do this. Like, you know, you're not ready for this. And I'm just like, no, I know I can do it. Like, I'm mentally strong enough to just go and do it, go and get it done. So yeah, it was a bit of an FU moment actually as well to some people when I crossed that line, because I was just like, yeah, I can do it. I knew I could do it. Although during that night between day 1 and day 2, I didn't think I could do it. I was ready to DNF, to be honest. But yeah, as a whole, the Gower Peninsula Ultra Challenge was an amazing event. So well signposted. The aid stations, really well stocked. Loads of stuff. You don't need a team. You don't need anything. You can just turn up and run one of these events, one of these races. You know, I'm absolutely buzzing with the event and buzzing with how it made me feel and the whole atmosphere that, you know, I've already booked to do 100k in the Cotswolds in June the 13th. My birthday is on June the 15th, and I was like, I want to do 100k before I turn 32. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I don't really agree with the fact that I'm a 100k finisher. I'm a double ultra marathon finisher, but I'm not a 100k finisher. But I will be on June the 14th, the day before I turn 32. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn the bell on. There's going to be more videos like this coming. In 2 weeks' time, I'm running the ARC 25 in St Ives, which is around about 41 kilometers across the Cornwall coast. This is a UTMB event, and I'm aiming to gain 2 stones with doing it under 8 hours. And we'll see how it goes. But I will do a race review of that race as well. I've got more races coming up, so please like, subscribe, and see you soon. Thank you for watching, and take care.